Hello, everyone. I think I'm live. I think we're ready to go. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and get started. Welcome to my panel. This is about Morike. It's creating your Morike wardrobe, so kind of a 101 beginner's guide. I'm Forrest and T. I also go by I don't know much, but I'm learning on the internet, and my name is Catherine. And I'm excited to be talking to you all today. So let's just jump into it. To start, I want to give you a brief introduction about me before I really get into the content for today. So, my name is Catherine, and I've been wearing Morike since about 2013. I started wearing Morike, I discovered it, and I fell in love with it, and I basically just worn it ever since. So, I've been around in most of the old school community, I guess. So, I've got a little bit of experience wearing Morike. I am an American expat, but I'm living in Japan at the moment, and I'm living in the countryside. And I only mention that because when I say I live in Japan, some people assume that I live in Tokyo, and that's not quite the experience that I've had. So you can see some pictures of my town on the screen here. Very beautiful. I'm quite enjoying myself. And then for my content online, I'm really passionate about chronicling the history of Morike, as well as providing practical information. So mostly my blog and my online presence is dedicated to chronicling a lot of the stuff that's being lost over time. So informative posts are kind of my gig. And then just to put it out there before I start, I am on social media. So if you do want to follow me, my Instagram is Forrest and T. That's where I'm most active. I post a lot of photos of fashion and my life here in Japan and also some music stuff sometime. So you can always find me there and contact me. Then I also do have a YouTube where I sometimes post. It's not my favorite format, but sometimes I do post there. And I sometimes post Mori content and music covers there as well. And then, of course, my blog, which is probably my most active informational social media, where I post a lot of information on Morike and its history. So I highly recommend checking that out for more information if you're interested in anything I have to say today. And also, just in case you want to listen along, I'm listening to some Mori music right now while I present. So if you want to have a very Mori mood while you're listening along with me, you can check out this playlist if you'd like. And there should be links in the Discord to everything I'm talking about today if you want to jump in and do that. So anyways, let's get started, and I'll give you a table of contents of what I want to cover today, just so you know what I'm going to get into. So first, I will give you a very brief intro to Morike if you're not aware of what it is. I do want to give you like a baseline information. But the major part of what I'm going to talk about today is what to wear. So I want to talk about clothing, accessories, the whole 9 yards, how to get into the style and what to wear. And then I will talk a little bit about purchasing things, so where to shop and some DIY options. And then I'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you do have a question, please try to save it to the end, and I will look at all of them then and try to answer any questions you have. Okay, so first, let's talk about what Morike is. I think it's pretty important to know when you're getting into how to wear the fashion style. So a very, very brief history. Mori was created around 2006 on Mixi, and the most simple way to explain Mixi is it is like the Japanese version of Facebook, if you don't know what it is. It was created on there with a bunch of people who were already wearing a fashion style that they found to be very similar to each other, and they wanted to give it a name. So they came together and they named it Mori Girl, or Morigaru in Japanese. And the term was originally created and coined by Choco, who wrote a loose set of rules and wrote like a magazine type book for Morike. And you can see that on the slide here. It's the green and brown book. It's also had some other names over the years. Mori Boy came out soon after Mori Girl to describe a more masculine version of the style. But these days, and what I use almost exclusively, is the term Mori K, which was created to be more like inclusive and less gendered. But I will say very briefly, if you are looking for old Mori content or Mori content in Japanese, you will need to use the term Mori Girl because it's basically only international name convention. So do keep that in mind. From the Mixi group, it did gain some popularity, especially in Harajuku. It moved from online only to street snaps and brands and even some magazines, which you can see on the slide here. And it was also featured in various Japanese media. So one of the famous examples is Honey and Clover, which is an anime which I've never seen, but there was a Mori character in that show, and also some other like famous people, some musicians. You can see Popoyans here on the screen, which is my favorite musicians of all time, they wore the style. So it gained a lot of popularity, and it's still pretty well known even today, but it isn't really active anymore. And then there are some sub-styles to Mori-kei. I'm not going to really go too much into them today, but some of the more well-known ones are going to be dark Mori, which is basically a palette swap with darker colors. Yama-kei, which focuses on like mountains instead, so a lot of hiking gear, some brighter colors. And Hama-kei, which is more beach related, so blues and light, airy sort of feel. And I will mention here some resources if you want to learn more. I'm not going to go much more into it than that, but I do have an introductory post on my blog, as well as there's a Mori Magazine scan archive that you can check out if you want to look at like more images than what I show you today. And all those I will be linking once after the stream is over, and they're also on the Discord. And then there's also 2 series on my blog where I talk about substyles and similar styles. If you're wanting to find something where you like Mori, but you want something a little different, you can check those out as well if you'd like. Okay, so let's get into the actual content of today, what I really want to talk about, and that is how to build your wardrobe and what to wear, how to get started. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things today, but I want to start with what I think is the most important thing when you are thinking about Mori fashion, and that is the silhouette. To me, there's a lot of like flexibility in Mori-kei, but silhouette is going to be the one thing that basically stays consistent throughout all versions of the style. So it's really important to know about it and to get it correct. So the silhouette in short terms is going to be flowing, really flowing, oversized. You're not going to see much form-fitting things, lots of baggy clothing, like purposely oversized. Usually it's not revealing. In general, it's a fairly like modest, conservative sort of style. So usually longer hemlines, higher collars. There are, it's not always the case. Sometimes people will have, exemptions to that rule, but in general, that's usually going to be much more modest. And lots of layers is the main draw of Mori-kei. So asymmetrical layers especially are really popular. It doesn't have to be, but generally tends to be a lot of asymmetrical layers. And even more simpler toned down versions of the style, which you'll see a few of them here on this slide, even more simple versions of the style will have a lot of layers. It will be fairly obvious when you look at it that it's different from like your average everyday sort of fashion style. It's going to be more layered than that. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to have 50 layers at all times, but it's going to be pretty layered. So keeping that in mind is really important. And I'm going to try and show some examples today in images. I won't really talk about them that much, but I tried to include some variations, so different body types, masculine, feminine styles, but it is difficult to find images these days that are not just Japanese brands or street snaps. So keeping that in mind, if you don't see an image that fits what you look like, that doesn't mean you can't wear Mori. It's good for anyone of any type, any size, any shape. So just do keep that in mind. Another thing that's important to think about is your colors and your fabrics. So in general, one of the things that Mori will have is very muted and neutral colors. So think about things like creams and whites and beige. And then if you do have color thrown in there, it's going to be, think of colors you would find in nature. And specifically when I say nature, I mean like European forests, because that's the aesthetic of Mori-kei. So you're not going to have bright like neons or very bold colors in general. It's usually pretty muted. So muted greens, muted blues, light floral colors, things like that are going to be your most popular colors. But neutrals are definitely the most popular, but that doesn't mean you can't have more color as well. Pastels are sometimes used. You have to be careful with pastels. If you use too much pastels, it starts to look like other fashion styles. But sometimes, like I've seen pastel pinks and pastel purples used, so they can also be used as well if you'd like. And darker tones, I don't have any on this slide, but you definitely can use darker tones. I'll give a few examples later. But in general, when darker tones are used, they're usually tempered with light tones to make them not as intense. So in general, you want like a softer feel for everything, but there is some variability in what kind of color you like, you can choose. Natural fabrics are also really important. In general, things like linen, wool, knit, cotton, those are going to be like a go-to. It's good for any time. But synthetic fabrics are okay, but you want things that look natural. So avoid things like, I mean, an obvious one, spandex. It really looks unnatural, so it's not going to fit in well with the style. So in general, stick for things that are either natural or have a natural look, and that makes it easiest to put together an outfit. Okay, and then for patterns, you'll often see a lot of Mori outfits with no patterns, but that is not like a rule. You can definitely have patterns. There's lots of examples here. You're going to see things like florals because they look very natural, usually small, dainty florals, again, keeping in mind colors. Patchworks you see a lot of because it's got that like country sort of look, so it feels very good with the Morike aesthetic. And with patchwork, you'll often see some brighter colors or bolder prints. Plaids were often used a lot in the past. I don't see them as much anymore, but they're definitely still good to wear. You can wear definitely any kind of plaid works well if it's got natural color feel to it. And in the past, Scandinavian inspired patterns were really used a lot. These days, not so much anymore, but for some reason, like early Morike was really obsessed with Scandinavian things. So if you have those kind of patterns, they also work pretty well. And you can also do other things like polka dot stripes, as long as they're soft feeling, look kind of natural. Basically anything can work. Here's a couple more examples of some patterns you can see. So there's some like, you got some checks here, you got like patchwork, you've got gingham, you got florals. So you can definitely make most patterns work pretty well with Morike. But again, you can also use no patterns. Anything is okay. It's up to you, your personal preference. Before I get too much into anything else, I do want to mention here, if you're looking for specific info on what pieces to buy, I don't have time to go into that, like to say like, please buy this kind of shirt, this kind of skirt or whatever. But I do have resources that I'll share here if that's something that you're looking for. In general, I don't like to give out like specific what you should buy because Mori is so varied. It's kind of up to you. But if you do want that, some resources you can have. One is from me. I wrote a post called Foundations for a Mori Wardrobe. It's very feminine focused. Most of these are, which I apologize for, but that's the majority of Morike. But if you do want like a step-by-step for like what kinds of pieces you should be looking for, I wrote that post a while back and I think it's still pretty accurate. Also, there's a video here by my friend Miwako. She made a guide as well on what to wear. I also highly recommend those. That video, it's really good resource as well. And two more. Another one from another panelist who's been on here previously, Petite Madeline. She made her must-haves video, which is a little bit of a different format. It's more the pieces that she would recommend that she enjoys wearing, but also really informative. And then you'll also see here one, the Wardrobe Essentials post. This is by Dear Miss Kelly, who's no longer active in the fashion style, but her post is still up and most of the links and things are still active for her blog. So I still recommend checking that out. It also gives like a good walkthrough of different pieces you might want to buy. So if you're looking for that, I highly recommend those resources. Okay. Then some things to keep in mind, since I'm not going to give you like specific pieces to buy. I want to give you some ideas when you're purchasing things, when you're doing things, what to think about. One thing to keep in mind is you don't need overly complicated, like really detailed pieces to make a Mori outfit. I think a lot of times people look at pictures and they're like, wow, there's so much going on. I don't even know where to start. But a lot of times those outfits are fairly simple pieces that you can find many places, just put together with layering, and they create a complete coordinate. So keeping in mind, like the two pictures on the left here, those are fairly simple pieces, but put together. So you got a simple dress, a simple cardigan, simple boots, but you put it all together and it gives you the look that you want. So keep that in mind. You don't need to buy anything crazy detailed to get started. You can work with what you have and use simpler pieces. Another thing to think about is if you do want something really detailed, one statement piece is a great place to start. So get like one shirt that's really detailed, or one dress that's got a lot of lace, or something like that, and work with that one piece. Because Mori is so varied, lots of layers, you can do things many different ways, mix and match, and you don't need to have a bunch of expensive pieces to get started. You can just start with one or just basic pieces. Also, another tip for different body types, I recommend experimenting with layering to fit your body type and your aesthetic. Um, I can't go into this too much because obviously I only have one experience with one body, but I found that when people look at a picture of a Japanese street snap or magazine, they say, oh, all the body types are very like thin and straight. But you can definitely wear Mori at any size or any shape. I've got some examples here on the right of that. So start layering at different places to find what fits best for your style and your body. So maybe start layering under your chest or start layering from the skirts. Anything can work. You have to just try it out for yourself. It's a lot of trial and error with Morike, unfortunately. But try it for yourself and figure out how it fits on you, how it lays, and pick what is best for you. Another thing is look for small details and unique items, or add your own details. So if you find something maybe with like a cardigan with unique buttons, and then a blouse with like a slightly interesting collar, by themselves, I mean, they're interesting, they're good for Morike, but when you put them together, it creates that unique look that makes it feel really detailed and put together. So you don't need like huge differences or details or like unique things to your clothing. Just start with small details, and putting it all together will really make everything look great and put together. I do have some links that I would recommend here. Again, you can check those out later if you'd like. I have a post on my blog about casual and inspired Morike, so ways to use more basic pieces and create a complete look that I would recommend if you do want to look at things for like just starting out. If you really only have basic pieces, I'd recommend taking a look at that. Sorry, I have a cold, so I might cough a little bit here. Okay. So then some common mistakes that I just want to highlight, just so that you are aware of them. And you can see some of them in the images of me from way back when on the side. Very embarrassing, but enjoy. One thing is improper layers. This is a major problem I see with a lot of people who just start out. And they'll have a lot of layers. They've got like, it looks good on a hanger, but then you put it on and it just like, it doesn't fit right. It doesn't look right. And that's usually because one of a few reasons. Maybe you have really bulky layers. So like too much layering around your hips. And so it makes that part of your body look way bigger than the rest. And it looks like unbalanced and unnatural. Or perhaps you have hems that don't match very well, which you can see in my pictures. So maybe the hems are kind of, wonky, or they're like too far apart or too close together. So it's hard to say exactly how to layer. And it also, again, is your preference. But trying to keep in mind, you want your layers to work together. You want them to flow and look nice together. Keep that in mind when you're putting an outfit together, so that way it will look more complete and will look more just put together. It's just better if you have layers that flow. And also sometimes people will have not enough layers, so they'll buy like one Mori piece and just wear it with their jeans. And sometimes that can work, but other times maybe it just doesn't like give you the look you're looking for. Or sometimes the opposite effect of too many layers, again, like really make it really bulky, or it looks like just not quite what you're looking for. If that's a style you like, that's fine, but I would keep in mind that in general, you want that good balance at all times. Another that I don't see as much anymore, but that I used to see a lot of, so I will mention it, is like a reliance on overly bright colors. And by that, I mean, like, you can have dark colors, bright colors in Mori occasionally, but I would see things like people using really bright, like almost neons, or really bold patterns, like a bold hibiscus pattern, or something like some of those bold, bright boho patterns. Those don't fit very well with Morike in general, and it's harder to make them work. You have to kind of finagle to make it look more muted and neutral and natural. So in general, if you're starting out, I would recommend avoiding those kinds of things and sticking with simpler, easier to work with colors and patterns and things like that. And then if you want to try and add those in later, go for it. But starting out, it's usually kind of difficult to make them work well. And again, just to reiterate, synthetic fabrics, you don't want them. If it's shiny, if it looks fake, just across the board, you don't want it. If it's spandex, then you don't want it. It's not going to give you the look that you want. So in general, try to avoid those kind of fabrics, and again, stick for a more natural look. But I will put a little like disclaimer here. Rules are meant to be broken. Morike is so varied. Although I tend to follow the mindset that there is sort of a general flow and rules to Mori, it's so broad. It's not like Lolita where you have, more specific guidelines. A lot of things that are not so Mori can be used if you coordinate them appropriately, or you can use bright colors, or you can use bolder patterns if you are working and keeping in mind that, again, the silhouette is usually what puts it all together. So if you do any of these things, more power to you. If you want to have improper layers or synthetic fabrics, go for it. It's really varied, so you can choose what you want to do and how you want to express the style. Okay. Very briefly, I will touch on shoes and accessories just because those are a little easier to like pinpoint what kind of things to buy or wear. For shoes, my biggest recommendation is going to be boots. That's just the easiest way. If you got a pair of like boots, it goes with almost anything. But also shoes with rounded toes, pretty much anything works. If it looks a little bit natural and it's got a rounded toe, you're going to be good to go. Avoid things like stilettos, obviously, things like that you're not going to want, but almost anything can work. Even, classic J fashion shoes, like rocking horse shoes used to be used a lot in Mori. So really anything can work. Usually leather or faux leather is the most popular kind of look, but anything with neutral tones is pretty easy to work with. Sometimes like I've seen floral patterns, things like that. Cloth shoes are good, so like cloth tennis shoes, those can be used pretty well. Anything with lace details is going to work. But in general, if it's rounded and it looks fairly natural, it's going to work. Accessories in general, with Morike, you can either go like all out with accessories or you can use almost none. So I tend to not use very many, but if you want to use a ton, that's also totally acceptable. Some things that you might want to look for: tarnished gold and silver are usually best because it looks a little worn in and more natural. So usually those are what you want to go for. Anything with lace, so you'll see here like the lace brooches, those were really popular for a while. They still look real cute with Mori. Flowers, animal motifs, anything that looks natural is really going to work fine. For larger accessories, shawls are great. I wear a shawl like all the time and it instantly makes an outfit look more put together. Scarves are also incredibly useful in Morike, especially in the winter, help you bundle up and keep warm. Hats are also great. Straw hats, knit hats, basically anything is fine. If it, again, keeping in mind the silhouette and the natural feeling and the colors, you can pretty much make anything work. Sorry. For bags, baskets, backpacks are going to be the most like iconic look, I guess. But really, again, anything works fine if it fits in with the general theme. I've seen people with all kinds of stuff. So it's really just what you prefer. But if you want something like instantly very Mori, a cute little like wicker basket with like lace details, that's going to be like an instant Mori thing. But really anything works. It's up to you. Okay, then I want to give you a few examples before I move on to like buying and shopping very quickly. Just some more images to look at. So here are some examples of a more classic sort of style. More neutrals, lots of layers, a lot of details. This is going to be your classic style. And there is an image here of my awesome mom who is trying out Mori, and she looks super cute, so please enjoy her image. But this is definitely the more traditional look that people assume when they think about Morike. But I do want to give you some more like different examples. So here are some ones with more bold color choices. There's tons more examples than this. These are just a few I picked out, especially in magazine scans. You'll see a lot of bolder colors, darker colors, less layers, things like that. But here you can see there's some bold prints, some dark blues, some dark purples. So really any kind of color that, again, looks slightly natural, you can make it work. And then here's a few more examples, some lighter colors, some pastels. I highly recommend checking out the account on this page, East Coast Mori Girl. She's got a lot of really cute outfits that tend to be in darker colors. She's no longer active, but her account is still up, so I highly recommend checking her out. I used to follow her religiously when she posted, but she hasn't posted in a long time. Okay, so that's a lot of information on what kind of things to buy, but I do want to briefly go over where to buy, how to buy. I say briefly because with Morike, it's very difficult to recommend to you where to buy because unlike Lolita, the style is basically dead in Japan. And people that wear it now, they don't tend to rely on brands, and they never really did, but especially now, most brands have been shut down. If you do want to buy from a brand, the pros to it, you're going to find pieces that are more like specifically Mori. So things with like a really like interesting detail or like made, like with fake layers or something to make it easier to use. More statement pieces, things like that. But the cons are going to be because a lot of brands are shut down, it's more expensive and there's a lot less options, of course. So if you do want to buy brands, AliExpress does have some. They're mostly like they're either like low quality or like replicas of old brands that have long been shut down, don't exist anymore, and you can't find their pieces anymore. But you can find some stuff on there, and there is some variability in sizes. You just have to be careful and look at the sizes there. Taobao also has some, I've been told, but I don't really shop on Taobao, so I can't give you any examples, unfortunately. And sometimes if you know how to work Japanese resale sites, you can find resellers of old brands, so like Wonder Rocket, Kawaii, and I have a post on that I recently made on like old brands on my blog if you're interested. But that is really hard to find. Your best bet and easiest bet is going to be to look for Japanese Natural K brands instead, I would recommend. So SM2 and looking for anything with Natural K would be your best bet, I think. You can also use some online keywords, which you'll see here. So like Mori Girl, Mori K, Natural Lace, Boho, sometimes Cottage Core, those kinds of things. You can use those to try and find pieces that will work. My biggest recommendation is going to be thrifting. I know some people don't like to thrift, but for me, like 80% of my wardrobe has been thrifted. It's good for basics, especially, but you can also find some really interesting pieces there. And if you don't have a thrift store near you, or your thrift store options are limited, there are online thrift shops now like Depop. I would recommend Miwako made a really good guide on how to shop on Depop for Mori Girl clothing, which you can find on YouTube. Also, small shops and various mainstream pieces can work. Like this thing I'm wearing right now, I just bought at like a random shop in the mall here in Japan. So like you can find stuff, and I found stuff in like when I was living in the U.S. as well. So mainstream pieces can sometimes work too, and like boutiques or Etsy, small shops like that. If you are interested in shopping on AliExpress, I do have a post on my blog, which again will be linked on how to do that, what to look out for, how to be careful about that. And then I have a couple on brand and thrifting and as well that I will link. So if you are interested in learning more about that or some tips on thrifting, you can check those out as well. But of course, there's also DIY options. So you can take a basic piece and make it more interesting. You can add lace or borders or patches. Those types of things are an easy way to give something a little more flair. If you do know how to knit or crochet, that's always great. I recommend Ravelry for some patterns. You'll see the shawl here on the picture. I made that and I wear it all the time, and it was totally worth the investment to make the thing because it's so useful. So if you have the time and the resources, DIY is going to be a great idea. If you do know how to sew, that's also a great idea. I personally can't sew my own clothing, but I know people who do. So if you can't find something that works for you, sewing is great. Embroidery as well, you can add some small details. And you can always go on YouTube. It's a great place to learn any new skill. That's how I learned to do embroidery and knitting. So any kind of skill you're looking for, if you have the time to pick it up, I highly recommend it. And then one last tip I want to throw out there: when you are purchasing clothes, when you're thinking about buying things, some things to keep in mind. First, I would recommend get yourself a Pinterest board or some sort of photo collection site, or like even a folder on your computer, and save images of coordinates you like. Since Morike is so varied, there's so many different ways to express the style. So find ones that specifically you enjoy and look for common themes in those images, and then think about, okay, what pieces are they using? What can I buy to create that same look? And I think that will help a lot in helping you know what to buy and keeping you from like buying a ton of stuff that won't work well for you. Also, I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially when you're first starting out, keep a color scheme in mind. You want, because Morike requires so much layering, you want all of your pieces to work together well. So if you can keep a color scheme in mind, like say, for example, I enjoy greens and pinks. Those work together well. I can buy only those colors to start out so that more of my clothing will work together well. So I highly recommend that. And also keeping in mind when you buy something, think about how it will be used with other pieces that you have. So don't just buy something because it looks Mori. Buy something because you know it will work with other things you have. And that'll be a good way to keep you from buying this piece that just sits in your closet and you feel guilty about for forever because, like, oh, it looked Mori, but it doesn't work. Because I have done that. So don't do that. Imagine what you're doing, how it fits together. And I think that will help you a lot. Okay, so that's a ton of information. I'm going to switch over to the comments now. I've not looked at them at all. If you have any questions, now is the time. Please throw them out, and I will try to answer them. And yeah, so yeah, if you got any questions, please throw them out now. Sorry, I zoomed through that. Oh, thank you for wishing me well wishes. I'm feeling better. Yeah, so I'm seeing one about colors. Yeah, lots of creams and ivory a lot to start out with, and other ones like all switching between colors. Yeah, you can totally do so many different color schemes. So if you have the resources and the time to find the clothing with many different colors, totally go for it. But your easiest bet is going to be for color schemes, stick with neutrals to start with and like one color. That's like the easiest thing to do. And then build from there. I'd highly recommend that. I want to reshare the Spotify playlist. Just a moment, and I will do that. I'm going to drop it in the chat here for the mod. Male Mori fashion. So since I don't wear masculine style, I think a lot of the same rules apply for male or masculine fashion. I do have a Pinterest board of masculine styles. I didn't link it here. I'll link it later when I re-upload this to my YouTube. But again, keeping in mind the same themes is really, really good. So the layers still apply, the colors still apply. It's usually a little less lacy, but it doesn't have to be. You want to rely more on layering in general. So keep it do like extra shirts or extra like sweaters, scarves, hats, things like that. And baggy pants, always baggy. You really don't want tight pants. But unfortunately, I don't have like a lot of details for that because I don't wear that style. So unfortunately, I can't help you too much there. Checking out here. Yes, vests. I see someone talking about vests. Vests are really great. Crochet vests are especially great for anyone at any time. Highly recommend crochet vests. Lifestyle. Okay. Lifestyle. So there are people in the community that think that they are like directly intertwined. I personally don't think so. I think for a lot of people, lifestyle is, it just kind of comes naturally. The type of people who are attracted to Morike fashion are usually attracted to natural lifestyle things, but you don't have to do that, especially in old school Mori days back on like the Live Journal, way back when. There were a lot of people who would just wear the style, just like people would do, like, you know, like wear Lolita at a meet only. Same thing with Mori. People would wear like Mori just on the weekend, just to meet with someone or just to take a picture. So you don't have to follow the lifestyle, but the majority of us do enjoy similar themes and similar things, but it's definitely not a requirement. Uh, oh, okay. Japanese brands. Ah, definitely. I mean, I already said SM2. I'd say that's my biggest one. The difficulty with Japanese brands these days is, especially right now with the pandemic, a lot of brands are going in and out. So it's hard to know what's available. And I personally can't wear most of them because I can't fit in the sizes. A lot of them are really restrictive. Um, but SM2 is always a good bet. They've been around for a long time. I highly recommend them. And I really just recommend, again, just searching for the term natural K in Japanese will find you some brands that you can use with Mori pretty well. So it's difficult because brands are going like so fast. It's no longer a mainstream style, so there's not like big names anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, modern Japanese brands, Miyako mentioned, they're really small sizes. In general, I'd say in the US, I usually wear like a large or extra large. Here, like it's almost impossible. Everything's like a medium Japanese size, which is like extra small US size, so very difficult. Oh, the community. That's a good question. These days it's a lot smaller, and it's always when I first joined Mori, everyone was on the LiveJournal, and it's slowly migrated around the internet. So I've been on like every website imaginable, just trying to keep up with like where is the community now. Right now, I'd say the most active places are going to be there's a Facebook group called International Mori Fashion and Lifestyle. It's still fairly active. And then we have a Discord, which I also didn't link. I forgot to link, which I will try to link when I share this video on my YouTube. But the community in general is really chill. You just show up and we chat about forests and cute things, and you know it's not always like fashion based only, so it's very chill, easy to join in. I've always found that there's been very little drama over the years in the community, so everyone's pretty nice and pretty great. So there's not many of us though, so we don't really have meetups like other fashion styles do or did. Even in its like heyday, really popular outside of Japan, there's never been like a large concentration of Mori people anywhere at any time, unfortunately, which is too bad. Yeah, very few and scattered. Oh, the Discord link. Let me double check and make sure that's the right one. It probably is, but because I'm pretty sure I know who you are. That sounded creepy. Sorry. Is this the right one? Yes, it is indeed. So if you do want to join Discord, that is going to be the link for you. You do have to talk to the admins there and be active, but we're pretty welcoming. If you're chill, then just read the rules and you're cool. Drama. Yeah, in general, not much drama, but there was a time when Mori was like most popular on Tumblr, and we did have some drama, but it was usually like stupid drama, and the majority of the community was like, we don't want any part of that. But yeah, it was interesting. Okay, cool blogs that are no longer active. Yes, I will. I was going to share this at the end, but I'll share it now. There are tons and tons and tons of old blogs, and some of them are active and some of them have been deleted. But I've been working on a project with the help of some other people. I'm making a wiki of Mori K resources and information. So that's also going to be linked in that document. It's got a list of active and inactive people. It's still a work in progress, but there's a lot on there already, so you can check out. Some of my favorites that like are easy to access, definitely Dear Miss Kelly. She was great. She had a lot of good resources. I'd say that's my like top recommendation. But you can look through that list on there and check out people in the community. And if you are in the Mori community and you want to be added to that list, self promo is encouraged. So please add yourself onto the wiki. Highly recommend. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the wiki, Katie. Oh, yes, that's also, yeah, Lyndon just said, I'm also linking that as well. I was going to link it at the end, but I'll mention it now since it's already been popped up. Yeah, there's a Mori K Resources Tumblr, which will also be linked here. And you can find tagged resources for basically everything. Before this Tumblr, there used to be one that was super useful, but like most things in the old community, it got shut down. But this new one is really great. So Lyndon's been put a lot of work into that. So highly recommend checking that out. Oh, thank you, Lyndon. That is the link. Highly recommend checking that out for sure. Any other questions? If not, I might just give you my other resources right now while I'm at it. Oh, yes, we are working on a magazine, but it's still in the planning stages. So, yeah, we're working on it. If I have any updates of that, I will update you on Instagram. So if anybody wants to do that, there is an Instagram for that as well, my dearest. So if you wanted to do that, you check it out. Well, I think I'm getting close to time, so I will just drop a few other resources here that I would recommend. So again, I recommend the wiki, and the resources archive is great. But here, also previous panel from Bay Area K, Petite Madeline, who's also in the community, did a panel on an introduction to Mori, which was really great and very informative. So definitely should check that out. It's highly I recommend watching that. She also made a Mori K must-haves video, which I mentioned already, but I'll recommend it again. That's also good to check out. Miss Kelly, again, she's got that post, which is really helpful if you're looking on how to build your wardrobe, and most of her website is still active to an extent, so you can check that out if you want. And then also Miwako, who's in the chat right now, she's my friend. She makes some really good quality content as well. She's got a good guide on what to wear, how to buy it from Depop, introduction to more. She's got a lot of stuff, so I recommend that as well. So I think that those are probably the best things. So yeah. Yes, we are doing our best to keep the community alive. Even though the community is like pretty small, I've found that it just kind of migrates around the internet. It's never really gotten any smaller than it was to begin with, which I think is pretty cool. We've had a pretty solid community. A lot of the old people have left, but like new people come in and kind of fill in that gap. So it's pretty great community, very chill. Highly recommend jumping in if you're interested in the aesthetic, even if you don't want to wear the fashion, but you just think it's fun. Come and join us. We're super chill. We'd love to have you. So highly recommend that. All right. If there are any other questions, I'll answer them. I got like 2 minutes, but if not, no worries. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I am starting to try and stream sometimes on Twitch, but I'm not very active, so maybe you'll catch me on there. All right, well, I don't think there are any other questions, so thank you very, very much for joining the panel. I've highly enjoyed talking to all of you. Again, I will link all these resources, and I'm going to put like a blog post and on my YouTube once I have the video up, so anything I mention here, as well as these slides, you can access them. You can also, again, follow me on social media. So my Instagram is where I'm most active, but also on YouTube or my blog. You can check it out there. And also, I do have an email. So if you really have like a long list of questions to ask me, you are welcome to send me a message on that email, and I will definitely try to check it out. So yeah, and thank you to all of the people from the community who jumped in at weird times, because I know that the time difference has been crazy, but here in Japan, it's perfect time in the morning, so I have the rest of the day ahead of me. But I appreciate all of you who are up later, really early to check it out. So thank you for coming by. All right, well, I think that's all from me. So thank you very much. I've highly enjoyed talking to y'all. I hope that you can learn something new about Mori fashion, and I hope that you enjoyed the panel. So thank you very much, and I'll see y'all later. Feel free to check me out on social media if you'd like. Bye.